Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
If it's important to you, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing, and your speed doesn't matter. Forward is forward. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this changing, transformative, amazing planet of ours. This is Inspired Living. I am your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here for another Wisdom Wednesday of encouragement, inspiration, motivation, thinking outside the box. Today we have a wonderful guest that's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes to talk about his new book, Move or Die, Creating a Game Plan from Stuck to Significance. And he is a coach. He is the former head strength and conditioning coach for, yes, my favorite team and Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks. Since I'm living here in Seattle, I've been following the Seahawks my entire life, and was a season ticket holder, and even got a chance to see them in one of our Super Bowls. Unfortunately, we didn't win that Super Bowl. We won't talk about that much on this show today. But we're going to be bringing on Chris Carlisle here in just a second to talk about his new book, Move or Die, and just talk about, success and moving past barriers and working through disabilities and things that hold us back. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to say we have moved into the top 20. I wish I had a little applause button that could give us applause for the 70 most inspirational podcasts to follow in 2022. And I know that there are thousands of podcasts out there, but FeedSpot has now ranked us number 20. We were at one point at 25, and I just want to say thank you to our inspired listeners. You are the inspired and the inspiration. Each week I come on Wisdom Wednesdays to do shows like this, and your reviews and your downloads through whatever podcasting platform you listen to Inspired Living, just very honored and humbled to have that ranking. You can find us Wisdom Wednesdays here through the OMTimes radio network. This is internet radio, so you can listen to us from anywhere around the globe on any device. No passwords, no username, no BS, and just Wednesdays of just getting inspired, motivated, and living that positive life. We go live at 12 p.m. Pacific, which is here in Seattle, Washington, my studio, and that would be 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. if you're in the Central Time Zone, and if you're all the way from my friends and colleagues over across the pond in London or the UK, that's 8 p.m. You can follow us on social media. Our main page is of Inspired Living Radio and Podcast is through Facebook. You can join the global community that grows by the week. And you can post questions, you can leave reviews, you can ask us, what shows you'd like to see in the future. You can also follow us over on Twitter and Instagram, and the name for our show is @InspiredForUs. That is the number 4, Inspired number 4 for us, Inspired for us. We do have a call-in line. I'm not sure we'll be taking calls today. We'll kind of see how the show goes because it goes so quick. That number is 202-570-7057. The producer, Chris, will put you into the waiting room if we get a chance, if we have questions on today's topic, which is Move or Die, Creating a Game Plan from Stuck to Significance, with our special guest, former head strength and conditioning coach from our Super Bowl Seattle Seahawks, Chris Carlisle. I want to read a little bit about him and then have him come on and just share his years of experience and wisdom in coaching and moving past barriers and moving past critics and doubts and pundits. Chris Carlisle is a former head strength and conditioning coach for our Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Before that, Chris coached at such notable colleges as the University of Arkansas, the University of Tennessee. We'll talk about that. I've been to a Tennessee game. It is absolutely crazy. And the University of Southern California. Chris graduated from Chadron State College with a Bachelor of Science in Education and went on to earn his master's degree in history from the University of Arkansas. His professional career started as an educator and a coach at the high school level. Then he moved up from the collegiate sports and then finally to the NFL, winning championships at every level. Since retiring from football, Chris has become a sought-after motivational speaker, incorporating experiences from his professional and personal life into each one of his presentations. His book, Move or Die, Creating a Game Plan from Stuck to Significance, puts readers on the path to obtaining the life that they have always believed they were destined for. You can learn more about Coach Chris at thecoachcarlisle.com. You can find him on all the major social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just look for either Coach Carlisle or the Coach Carlisle. And with that, let's open the show, or as I like to say, be inspired, inspire others, inspire before we expire. Coach, welcome to Inspired Living.
Mark, thank you very much. Hey, let's get into that Super Bowl 49. I think that's a great place to start. Really, I was writing about that just last night. We got beat, and it was a tough game. It went down to the end. We had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and Tom Brady drove the Patriots down for 2 touchdowns, and then we had an interception on the 1-yard line that Malcolm Butler made a tremendous play and intercepted, and pretty much ended the game right there. And and that's what the public saw right there. Now think about the media. The media had their knives out. Who were they going to blame? Because you had the offensive coordinator, you had the quarterback, you had the wide receiver who might have missed his block. You had a lot of people who could get blamed, and the defense could get blamed. And so Pete Carroll, the head coach, steps up on the podium and says, "Yeah, that was a tough one to lose, but that last call, that was me. That was my choice. I made that call." All right. Now, did he or did he not? See, it didn't matter to Pete because Pete took the blame. He ate the blame. And I think that's one thing that we have a problem in today is people that eat the blame, that accept okay, I may not have done everything possible to make this all right. And to me, that's kind of one of those inspired moments where he stepped up in front of the whole world and cut out all the conversation with just his statement that I'm going to go ahead and eat this blame, whether it was his fault or not. The head coach does a lot on the sideline, but you have coordinators making all the calls. But he stepped up. I think that to me is worth talking about. That the game was great and all that, but the lesson you learn from that is that you've got to be big enough to step up and say, yeah, that's my fault. Rather than passing the buck to somebody else or blaming somebody, pointing fingers, look at yourself and say, what could I have done? And how, if I eat this blame, will allow us to continue to move on.
Yeah, I love that. What a great way to open the show, too. What a great perspective. As we were talking before we went on air here, and I was at the game before the Super Bowl, one of the best playoff comebacks in the history of the NFL. I was there at, in the Hawks Nest watching the game, beat Green Bay, wake up the next morning just, elated for the win, and, receive tickets in the lottery that I get to go down to Phoenix and witness my first ever Super Bowl that I've never been to a Super Bowl before then. And, went down, great game, back and forth, watching, Tom Brady, the GOAT of quarterbacks, and watching our Seahawks. And then, coming down to that last play, where you have one of the best running backs in the game with Marshawn Lynch. And it was a heartbreak, but like you and I were talking about, there were so many amazing things that happened in that game, so many records that were set. And in today, it's actually a top 5 Super Bowl moment game to actually go back and witness. But what I love about Pete is his leadership. He does. He takes responsibility on his shoulders, and that's what leaders do. And I agree with you. I think in today's age, there's a lot of fingers pointing out, and I always remind our listeners, when you're pointing one finger out, there's 3 fingers pointing back at us. And for Coach Pete to get on that podium, I watched it. I was a little tearful, but I did watch it, and he did. He took ownership of it, and We still talk about it today, but what a fantastic experience. And for me, it's
Sure.
about collecting memories, not things in life. And the reason I do this show is to have these conversations, to get perspective and inspiration for our listeners all around the globe. And for you wrote this book, Move or Die, and I want to get into the a little bit about the book, because you've won at every single level, from starting your days as a high school teacher, going from high school to collegiate to the NFL. That is not an easy path. So let's talk about just your path for our listeners out there, and what inspired you to start writing this book that we're sharing today.
Well, my path is one I had to take. A lot of people move faster through it, but I think you've got to look at yourself and understand that there's certain things that you've got to go through so that you understand and you live through your scars. And so my path is longer. Sure, it took me a lot longer than some people to get to that end, but I got to the end where I wanted to be. And that was the most important thing. Too many people want to run through and be on top real fast before they understand every step of the process. And I'm a huge process guy. And so I want to understand everything that goes on. So when I take that next step, I'm stepping on firm ground. I'm not just guessing where I'm stepping. And so to go from the high school level to the junior college level to the college level as an assistant, and then to a head, and then into the NFL, I knew where I was at all the way along. And so I think that's what your listeners, we need to understand, is that it's not a race. We're not trying to keep up with everybody else. We're trying to make sure that we're making the right choices for ourselves. And that's where the book comes in, Move or Die. And it's kind of a stark title, Move or Die. But I was doing research for a book on training athletes. And I researched the idea of human movement, how far back, it became part of our soul. And I found in my research in a study done at Texas A&M University that it goes back all the way to our most distant ancestors as they moved out of the river valleys onto the plains to chase the animals. It became part of our genetic need to move. Now, if we didn't move, we would die as a life form. But in our world today, the only way we can move, we can't really move geographically anymore, because we've been as far north and south and east and west. We've been to the top of the mountain. We've been to the bottom of the ocean. We've been to the moon. We're heading to Mars. But where's our movement right now? Our movement is in professional and our personal ways. And so if you get stuck where you're at and you have these ambitions to be something else, and you get stuck in that position, look at all the health problems we have in our society today that are caused by stress, anxiety, cholesterol issues, weight issues, because we got stuck mentally and our body is reacting against us. Mm-hmm. And so that's where Move or Die. Either we'll continue to move on and answer that itch in our soul and our DNA that we need to continue to move forward towards our dreams. Now, let me give you a case in point. My father passed away during the writing of this book, and in his last days, he kept moving, and he'd fall out of his bed trying to get up. And I asked the hospice nurse, I said, what prompts you to do that? And she said, it's called terminal restlessness, that your mind and body wants to keep moving even though you're at the end of your string. So that's that whole thing at Move or Die, that either we continue to move or we're going to slowly die, either professionally or personally. And so we got to continue to move on our path forward to get to where we're supposed to be.
Or as Dory says in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. So we got to go that extra mile, because it's never crowded out there. And my condolences on the passing of your father, but he is definitely very much alive and watching everything going on and what you're doing with this book. And,
oh, sure.
And I definitely can relate to that, because my father-in-law, same thing before he passed from his multiple sclerosis. He wouldn't stop moving, and there was just that will to fight. And it's you move or die. And that's what we're going to talk about here about this book. We're going to talk about a little bit more in depth about your journey and the barriers that we all run up against. And I've never met a strong person with an easy past or an easy path to get to success. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being an educator and then becoming a coach, and the leadership and inspiration you bring to these young players that are up and coming, whether at the high school level, the JC level, the D1 level, or even the NFL. And you inspire me, and I'm just happy that you agreed to come on the show today and just share this book, Move or Die, with us. So,
well, thank you, Mark. As a teacher, we're always teaching. No matter if you have that diploma in your house or if even in coaching, I was teaching every day. And as a parent and as a friend and as a sibling, we're always teaching those around us. We may not know we're teaching, but the way we act and the way we do things, we're constantly teaching. So we're all teachers out there making everybody better.
Yeah, hear, hear. I always like to say, life is an acronym. Learn it from experience and fail daily and fail often. First attempt in learning. And, when we are failing, we're learning. And when we're learning, we're also teaching. Because people look at us for the journey, for this show, this podcast, your book. These are all teaching moments if we're open to that. So we're going to get ready for our first break here. We're going to talk when we come back from the first break. I know that you were born with a physical handicap and you fought through a speech impediment. You battled cancer. And you survived a life-threatening accident. Talk about the trifecta. I think our inspired listeners are going to be a little bit inspired and curious to hear about those three different, what I call soul adventures, and what it was that helped you find success despite these obstacles. So we're going to be back here in 2 minutes. You are listening to Inspired Living, where we like to say, be inspired, inspire others, inspire before we expire.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Listeners, we hope you're enjoying the shows here on OMTimes Radio. Marc Lainhart here, and host of Inspired Living Radio. And I'd like to invite you to my morning show of inspiration, encouragement, healing, motivations, transformations, and discovering that diamond within. Metaphysical Mocha Mondays every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, over on the Intuitive Prospector Facebook page and my YouTube channel, Soul Adventures. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live and discover that diamond within.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
People who wonder whether the glass is half empty or half full are missing the point. The glass is refillable. Welcome back to Inspired Living. Our special guest today, Chris Carlisle, who is sharing his book, Move or Die, creating a game plan from stuck to significance, and former head strength and conditioning coach for our beloved Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Go Hawks! And joining us today to talk about his book, his barriers, his pathway, his inspiration. And welcome back, Coach. Thanks for being here. So right before the break, we were talking about your journey, your struggles, and the things that you've gone through. And from reading, that's a lot to go through. You were born with a physical handicap. You fought through a speech impediment. You battled cancer, and you survived a life-threatening accident. Let's talk a little bit about those and your mindset and how you overcame those and what you did in those trying times.
I think they're all teachable moments. I think you can look at that way, is that all those things in your life, a lot of people see it as, I go back to Randy Pausch, who wrote the last lecture. And Randy Pausch talks about the walls and the barriers that are in front of you. He said, those aren't there to stop you. Those are there to see how badly you want to overcome them, that they're there for other people. And so when I look at all these things I've had, and so I had a lower leg on both sides. The doctors told my mom that, he'll never run like the rest of the kids. And he was right. I ran better because I earned a scholarship in football. And then because I wasn't running well as a child, and I had two older brothers, I was chasing them. As soon as my front teeth came in, I knocked them out. And now front teeth were not like sharks, that they just rotate forward. We've got to wait for them to grow in. And so during that time is your time when you're learning to speak. And so I developed a speech impediment. And then because I was being made fun of, I developed a stutter. And the speech therapist told my mother, he's never going to be a public speaker. And her response to both of those doctors were, well, we'll see about that. And then I was diagnosed with cancer, and they gave me a 40% chance to survive. And my mother told me, she said, we'll see about that. And so that's kind of the whole idea is that you decide for yourself how you're going to accept this. I was told I was going to lose all my hair when they put the first needle of chemo into me, and they told me I wouldn't be able to work. And during that time, I moved from the University of Tennessee as an assistant strength coach to the head strength coach at USC, and I never missed a day. I didn't always feel great, but I allowed my mind to overcome that feeling of nauseousness and fatigue that I had during chemotherapy and radiation, to go ahead and press through. And we did that without telling anybody. Coach Carroll and I never told anybody because I didn't want to be treated differently. And I think that's a problem within our society, is that we make it too soft on people, and they buy into this whole idea of being sick. And so if we just go through life and we push forward and we persevere what comes to us and we handle it in our own way, we're going to see a lot more success. So what I've learned from this is never let anybody set your boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I talk about that in my book also, is don't allow, if you have people that are trying to hold you back, then you need to be away from those people and find those people that are lifting you up and bringing your mind to a better state of being. So that's why you're here, Mark, and that's why I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, I always say don't wait for that perfect moment. Take the moment and make it perfect, right? Because there's a lot of critics, there's a lot of pundits, there's a lot of experts out there that are always saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's funny that we're even talking today, Coach, for the fact that, I had taken my graduate studies in sports medicine. I actually took them here at the University of Washington, and I thought I was going to be the guy on the field, whether collegiate or professional, helping the athletes, working with them, kind of like, in the Super Bowl, when one of our Seahawks, busted his arm up. They didn't show that on TV, but we saw it from the sidelines, right? And I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And life, hands you cards that you have to play based on your experiences and how you go forward or not go forward, because it's free will and choice. But, I've always had ties to sports growing up. Growing up, I had more connections to the NBA with, certain players like John Stockton, Thurl Bailey, Mark Eaton, because I'm from Spokane, Washington, born and raised. So having those ties to, the professional arena and seeing these athletes come in and just do amazing things, but also not just from a sports standpoint, but very well-spoken, very, inspirational, very coaches and teachers like you're talking about. And you talked about the University of Tennessee. I did go to a game there because my cousin was actually a main anchor there in Knoxville. and we went down for a weekend game, and it was Manning was the quarterback, so that should give you a time frame of when we were there.
Mm-hmm.
But I had never experienced Rocky Top with the color orange and the town shutting down. I thought I knew football. I was wrong until you've gone to an SEC game and watching that environment and that energy. And Tennessee ended up winning, and I can't remember what year Manning was then, but I think they're playing Notre Dame. But it was a great experience. And then to go to, did you go to USC? Is that where you went from after USC?
Yes, yeah.
And is that how you and Coach Pete met then? Was he at USC at the time, or no?
Well, he had just gotten the job. I was just diagnosed with cancer.
Got it.
I got a phone call, and the guy just full of life, and hey, and coaches have a way of pulling pranks on each other, and they really don't care what your state of being is. They're going to pull that prank. And I thought it was one of my buddies that was pulling a prank on me, but truthfully, it was Pete Carroll. And we started talking. He said, "I'd love for you to come out to USC and work with me." And he said, "I've heard so much about you." And I said, "Well, I've been diagnosed with cancer." And there's a pause in me. He said, "Is that going to change you as a coach?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Could you be here on Monday?" And wow. So I wasn't going to let him down. I wasn't going to let the team down. That's that whole thing. And back to you being an athletic trainer, you go, here's the thing, Mark. Your vehicle is healing people. Mm-hmm. You're doing that right now. All right, whether it was an athletic trainer or not, you're healing people right now in what you're doing. And it was the same way with me as coaching. I thought I was in coaching to win championships, and that was pretty cool. But when I was sitting on the tarmac, we just won the Super Bowl, and the 2013 season. It was February 3rd, 2014. And I was already working on the off-season program that wasn't due to be put into action until April, and this was February. I had enjoyed the win for 12 hours, and I was back to thinking about the next season again. And I thought, maybe it's not about the wins. And so I did some work on myself, and I write about it in the book, and I found out that coaching is merely a vehicle that I was on to do what my passion is. My passion is to help other people achieve their goals and dreams. And the vehicle was coaching. Your vehicle was going to be athletic training. And then you've got into this part of your life right now, and you're helping people along. And that's what people have to understand. Understand why you're doing this. What's the most important thing? Why do you want to be in that business? Why do you want to be in this occupation? If it's about helping people, there's a dozen ways to do that. And my way now, with a football team, I only can talk to 100 people at a time in a season. Mm-hmm. Now I can speak to thousands of people, in a day or in a month, in a year, and be able to reach out to them and help pull them from where they're at, where they're stuck, to where they want to be. And so that's kind of my life, and that's that move or die. Excuse me.
Well, thank you for that, Coach. Thank you for that perspective. I didn't think about it that way. You're right. When I got into this, we've been on the air for 7 seasons now, and I was like, why am I doing this? But it's the vehicle to inspire. And not only are you not talking to thousands of people, technically you're talking to the globe, because we're broadcasting internet radio. So anybody from Hong Kong to Australia to the UK to here in America could be listening to this podcast, this live radio show right now from their device. So you're technically speaking to the globe.
That's great.
And you did talk about the process and applying that grind. I know you talk about in the book, you discuss the grind being essential to being successful. Can you talk a little bit about that grind and what you meant by being essential to being successful?
Well, too many people define the term grind. Grind is a good thing. Too many people, I got to grind. It's such a grind. Yeah, that's what we're going to go ahead and break down those big problems into small problems and use that as a foundation to build off of. If you change the perspective from the get to the got to, I got to go to work. I get to go to work because it's going to answer all my dreams. And if that job's not going to answer your dreams, then we need to find another vehicle to get you to your dreams. And so the grind is what we get to do every day. When we start thinking about the get-to opportunities that the grind gives us, it makes me better at what I do. It makes me more efficient. It makes me tougher. It allows me to become who I want to become. Then all of a sudden, we wake up the next morning and we're ready to go. It's hard to go to sleep when you understand that the grind is a good thing because you're so excited about tomorrow. So that's what I talk about in the book. And I'm not just blowing smoke and unicorns and stuff like that. I'm talking about a real sense of attitude that there's good stuff going to if you're positive about where you're at is where you're supposed to be, then goodness sake, go after it. Attack it every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that too. Get to versus got to. That's very, very powerful. And, the mindset and the perspective, the perspective is always important because you could be like, oh, crap, or you could be like, oh, crap, like the energy within how your response is, because your response is in life is really everything, right? You have free will and choice, but you decide, how you want to respond. We can't control what's going on in our world. I wish I could, given everything that's going on, but all I can do is control my reactions and my thoughts to that external environment. So I love that. Get to versus got to.
You control two things.
Powerful.
You control your effort and your attitude. You control your effort, how hard am I going to go after it, and your attitude. What kind of attitude? Just like you're talking about, your presence of mind. You get to control. That's what you control in this world. And when you go ahead and put a lazy day out there, then you allow the other side to win. And when you come in with a negative attitude, then you allowed them to win, whoever them is. I don't care who they are. That's just that gray smoke out there, okay? If you come in with that attitude that I control my attitude, so I'm going to have a great day today, and I don't care what you do, I'm going to have a great day, and I'm going to work my tail off so I get better today. Because when I get better, we all move forward. When that tide rises, all the boats rise with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's that get to versus got to, and the two things you control. Every day when you wake up, you put 2 feet on the ground, you say, thank you for this opportunity to move forward in my life. So that, that's how I live, and that's how, everybody around me that we work together, that's how we go about our days, and it has been for 35 years.
Oh, and I love that. And you surround yourself with like-minded, your tribe of similar energy, similar thoughts. We do a lot of shows. I've done a lot of teachings on mindfulness, being in the power of the now, planting seeds today for the future you want tomorrow. And you talked about, they give you a 40% chance of, dying from cancer, but there's 60% chance that you're gonna live, right? There's a lot of fear out that I see in our society, and I always teach.
No, there was a 60% chance I was going to die. There was a 60% chance I was going to die. Yeah, but Ted Williams, 40%. Ted Williams made the Hall of Fame batting .406, which is only 40%. If I batted 40%, I'd be a Hall of Fame guy.
Exactly.
So I had a 40% chance to live. And so I looked at that as, my dad was from the Boston area, so, the Boston Red Sox and Ted Williams all those guys, and so when I thought of that, when I thought, hey, Ted Williams hit .406, and he's the last guy to do that, I got a 40% chance. I got a chance, I'm ahead of the game. So I'm sorry I interrupted you there, but when you brought up a 40% chance, heck, I got a chance, the way we buy lotto tickets, and without even that kind of chance. But you know what? If you don't buy the lotto ticket, you can't win the lotto.
Win. Yeah, and for our listeners out there, that 60% is even more fearful because that's actually a higher percentage where you are like, no, I've got a 40% chance of living. Like you said, you hit 40% in the major leagues. Yeah, you're a Hall of Famer.
Attitude versus effort. My attitude was the thing. I saw it as a positive. I was going to push through. I knew I was going to be fine. I had a son that was just a year old. I may not be the best father, but I think I can do a heck of a job. So I wasn't going to let him down. Coach Carroll had just hired me at USC. I wasn't going to let him down. I had too much to live for in this life. You better come at it a little bit harder than what you gave me, So, it was just, again, it was a learning experience. It's one of those teachable moments in my life that I saw the wall, the Randy Pausch wall, and it wasn't there to stop me. It was there to decide how badly I wanted to overcome it. So you find that way, that great effort, that great enthusiasm, that whole way of doing with your life.
Yep. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so for our inspired listeners out there, I'm going to get a little spiritual on you because this is something I've long talked about. We've done many podcasts about this. the set of consciousness and mindset and mind over matter, the force with which our thoughts affect our environment, it's much greater than the force with which our environment affects our thoughts. And with all the fear out there, I always teach and remind our inspired listeners out there, fear has three meanings: forget everything and run, face everything and rise, or false evidence appearing real. So embrace fear, go after, don't let it hold you back, don't let it become a barrier. And we're going to, in just a few minutes, we're going to have our final break. Like I said, the show moves quick, but I want to talk about, in your book, you talk about the hard lessons. You talk about the path to significance, the deep end, speak your truth, all very, powerful stuff, especially chapter 6, which I love. You call it Take the Risk. I always say, if you don't risk it, there's no biscuit. And,
Arians, yeah.
And just with everything going on in our world, this is no better time than to go after your dreams, live for today, because there is no guarantees for tomorrow. We've done you probably haven't heard about this, but we did a show about 4 years ago, a podcast here on Inspired Living, and we had a guest on, an expert, a scientist. And on a daily basis, do you know how many people actually pass over into the spirit world every single day that this globe spins around the planet?
I don't even.
50,000. 50,000 people a day. From,
every day.
Sickness, car accidents, wrong place, wrong time, what have you. You talked recently about your father passing over. He would be in that category of one of the 50,000 that moved into the spirit world. 50,000 people a day, that's powerful. And so when you put it in that perspective, you're like, you know what? I got to get something done today. I got to be inspired. I got to, inspire others. I got to inspire before I expire, because there's no guarantees for tomorrow. So, if you don't risk it, there's no biscuit. So we're gonna go to our final break. We're gonna get back, and we're gonna talk with Coach Chris Carlisle about his book, Move or Die: Creating a Game Plan from Stuck to Significance. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
If I could be you.
And you could be me.
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way.
To get inside.
Each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
welcome back to Inspired Living. As Albert Einstein reminds us, creativity is intelligence having fun. So stop being afraid of what could go wrong. Focus on what can go right. And as I always like to say, your focus determines your reality. Thanks for being here today. Our special guest today, Chris Carlisle, former head strength and conditioning coach from the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, talking about his new book, Move or Die, creating a game plan from stuck to significance. If you want to check out the book, you can go to thecoachcarlisle.com. There you can get links to the book to purchase. I imagine it's going through all of the online retailers right now, Coach. But thanks for being with us today. And thanks for being just, talking about your book and being an inspiration to our inspired listeners out there. I know that they're going to really enjoy this. If they're not listening live, they'll catch the podcast down the road.
That's great.
So, you talked in your book, the path to significance, the hard lessons. But in chapter 6, you talked about take the risk or the road less traveled. So let's talk more about the book and, the chapters, the creativity, as Einstein talked about, that intelligence and that creativity that you're sharing with us today. And how can someone formulate a plan to maybe reduce that risk or that fear that they may be going through when they're making decisions?
I took the chapter, The Road Less Traveled, from Robert Frost's poem, in which he says, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And that's a lot of what we get into. That one path is really full of everybody else doing it. And so if you can find your niche, that area that you're specialized for, because we're all born with certain gifts and abilities, and you've got to find what that is. It's not always following the path. I always kind of chuckle when people tell me they're going to college. I say, what's your degree? What you're studying? Business. And that's it. Business. That's huge.
That's huge, Phil.
It's like can you hone in? No, just business. It's like, you're just following that big path. Let's try this over here. Let's follow that little path that maybe less traveled path, but it's that path that we walk on in life. And I think the thing that we all need to have that we're missing is the ability to trust ourselves. That if we want to continue to move down our path, if we want to get to that life of significance, it all starts with you. And it all starts with you trusting yourself. And that's where we have to get to that point. Most of the time, we get stuck because we don't believe in ourselves. And then we surround ourselves with people who want to hold us back. And so we lose that whole idea of trust. So can we take a risk? No, because we've been talked out of it so many darn times. We've got to find these people that are around us that are willing to tell the truth that's going to help us to move down the path. And that's not lying to you. That's to give you the truth that's going to go ahead and continue pushing you down the path. And you may have to take that road a little less traveled. And that's okay. It's a little scary, but it's also exciting. And that's what makes you stay up at night where you can't sleep because you're so excited about the next day. And so we continue down that path with people helping us. And then all of a sudden, once you trust yourself and you continue to make those right moves, even if you take a misstep, you can still recover and move forward. And when we do that, we have a chance.
Or like you said, we get to versus got to, right?
Exactly. And then once we get to that point where we find success, then we leave our mark. And that's why else? Why else do we do what we do? I got the idea of leave your mark from the caves in France, where they found the handprints of primitive human beings, where they blew the dye onto the powder onto the walls, and they were leaving their handprints there to say, I was here. This was me. I was in this place at one time, and they leave their mark. And so how are you going to leave your mark? What are you going to do to advance us, move that needle a little bit farther to make us a better place? Is it the way you help other people? Is it the way you think, your creativity that drives us forward, as Einstein talked about? And what is it that's in you that can help move us forward, because if we're all moving forward together, we don't have to do the same thing. We all just have to take that step together, and that needle is moved farther. And you get to leave that mark. And I talk about people with gifts. All right, you go, well, I'm not gifted. I don't have a Harvard degree. I'm not a great athlete. You know, I'm pretty average. Here's what the gifts are. Gift people are grinders. That's your work ethic. We talked about the way you control that. Internally driven. And those are the people that trust themselves. They're self-motivated. They get up and they go. They're focused. They're goal-oriented. You set those mile markers out there. Don't set a marker out that's 10,000 miles away. It's like a road trip. Make sure you know where you're going along the way. So when you get to that spot, you have your little celebration for yourself and you continue to move forward. It gives you that idea of where you're going to go. You're transformative. That means you go ahead and change and affect things around you. And finally, you're synergetic, in which you're a path maker. That when you move through that path, you allow people to come behind you. You bring people along with you. And so that's what gifts are. And everybody has this ability. Their ability to grind, their ability to be internally driven, the ability to be focused, the ability to be transformative, and in the end, be synergetic, and that you bring people with you. When we do this, we move our society and our culture along the way that it should be, organically from us.
Yeah, that's I always refer to it as the 3 C's in life. Make a choice, take a chance, see the change. And you must make that choice to take the chance if you want anything in your life to change. And you're right, if you want to fly, if you want to take that leap of faith, if you want to leave the nest, you got to get rid of everything that weighs you down. That includes relationships, people, the doubters, the people who say, oh, you can't do that. That's very, very powerful for that journey. And to, like you said, to leave your mark. I was asked, I did an interview a couple years ago, and they said, with the gifts that I have, that I didn't always realize I had, and to be talking about this on a radio show here in Seattle, they said, well, what's your legacy? And I said, that's a great question. I don't know. I said, hopefully I can leave something behind that will inspire people, that will get people to think, to find, as Dr. Maya Angelou talked about, nothing can dim the light that shines from within, and to inspire people to find that diamond within as the intuitive prospector, and to listen to these podcasts, 100 years from now, who knows what, society and the future looks like, but to, have these podcasts and these shows and these articles to inspire people, to get them thinking bigger than themselves. Because you're right, it does move society forward. It does move all of us. A rising tide lifts all ships. And I think we need that more than ever with our society and where we're currently at in the world. Yesterday was a fantastic day from the James Webb Telescope, revealing to us just how small we are. I mean, I'm going to geek out here for a second, but if you take a grain of sand and you hold it at arm's length of the one picture that they took, the first picture revealed yesterday, that's one grain of sand, and within that grain of sand is thousands of galaxies, and within those galaxies are millions of planets. That to me is mind-blowing, to show you just how small we are. And to find your path to significance, like you write in the book, and overcome, whether it's sickness, disabilities, handicaps, we all have something. But again, nothing can dim the light that shines from within. So, or you can even take it further in Alice in Wonderland. You're mad, bonkers, off your head, but I'll tell you a secret. All of the best people are.
I've always defined success as what you do for yourself to attain your goals. Significance now is what you do to help others to achieve their goals. And so, it's just a slight change in there. It's from what you do for yourself to significance is now that we go ahead and share it with everybody else. And that's part of the gifts attitude. And we get to continue that process through the rest of our life, that we continue to help everybody along that path. Because too many people give up on themselves. They give up on the process, and they just go ahead and work for other people's dreams. And they put their dreams aside, they put them in a box, and they go ahead and I'm just going to work this job to accomplish this person's dream, and they give up on themselves. And that is a terrible, terrible crime in my eyes. That when you give up on your dreams, and only to accomplish other people's dreams. You know, everybody has this ability, and you talked about, you know, putting your best out there. And, you know, in Matthew, he talks about don't put a candle under a bushel basket. You know, let your light shine. Allow yourself to be seen as far as how good you are for this earth. And that you, when you show your abilities, then people flock to you. You were talking about your podcast here that now it's in the top 20. Congratulations. That is so hard to do, and you have to be so consistent in what you do. But you continue putting the light out there, and people flock to it because it's a way to help understand what's going along and have a base, and that spiritual base is so important.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of people that are living other people's dreams because they gave up on their dream, they quit, they were fearful, they had self-sabotage. You know, listen to that inner voice, inspired listeners. Listen, you know, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. We learned that yesterday with the reveal of the oldest picture of our universe, that we couldn't see stuff, you know, from the Hubble telescope to now in 2003, from 2003 to 2022. There's so much that's, you know, becoming more visible and more aware, in that awakening and that mindfulness and that light within. And, you know, Coach, thanks for being on today. This really is, you know, I love talking with people, you know, in different fields, different, you know, mindsets. And I really appreciate you coming on and just inspiring me, one, but also inspiring our listeners out there. And, you know, you talked about, you know, the mindset, which is very, very powerful. I do believe that our focus determines our reality and what we see through our eyes. But how does one develop that learning mindset, kind of a last teaching moment before we close? How does one develop a learning mindset to overcome the fear, you know, the doubt, the self-sabotage? How would you coach them and teach them today on those negative aspects that we all have as human beings? We all have them. No one is free from that mindset. But how do you develop a learning mindset and a positive mindset to be successful?
Well, first of all, you got to drop the three deadly bullets, what I call them. All right, arrogance, ignorance, and inflexibility. And the first chapters of the book, that's all I talk about, is my issue with my arrogance. When I came out of college, I didn't apply for an assistant's job. I was going to be a head coach because I didn't think anybody knew more than I did. And then I was such a yeller. My ignorance about what I thought football was I watched Bobby Knight and all these old coaches, Vince Lombardi, and they yelled and they won. So I thought that's what coaching is. So the louder I yelled, I hoped that we would win. Unfortunately, I was wrong with that. And then my inflexibility was to that whole idea that I knew more than everybody else. Once I dropped my arrogance, my ignorance, and my inflexibility, I was then open to learn. And so you've got to go ahead and step away from all those things that are holding you back and allow you to open your mind to what is out there that you can learn. Because every day I look to learn something new. And so listening to you today, Mark, has really just filled my bucket full of more information. And there's one poem I want to leave with you that I learned in high school, and it's the only poem I know. And it was written by Stephen Crane, the guy who wrote The Red Badge of Courage. And it goes, I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round they sped. I was disturbed at this. I accosted the man. It is futile, I said. You can never, you lie, he cried, and ran on. And so it's so easy. It's what, 36 words, 8 lines, and most of the words are in the title. So that's why I memorized it. But to me, I didn't understand how that poem was going to chase me for the rest of my life. And that's about chasing your ambition, chasing your dreams, to continue to go farther on, to continue. I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Can you get to the horizon? Well, people will tell you can't. But get away from those people. They don't know who you are. They're setting up barriers for you that they can't do, so they think you can't do it. But you can do anything you want.
I love it. Or as Winston Churchill once said, if you stop to listen to every barking dog along the way, you'll never get to where you're going, right? So I just want to read before we end the show. We got about a few minutes here, but you talked in your book, and I want to read right from the book, not using all your crayons. And, you know, a reminder out there, broken crayons can still color. But you talked about people using too many crayons in the book, and crayons that are not in their box. They are the people who never use the crayons they have at their disposal. Too many people have all this talent stored up, yet they only use 2 or 3 of their strengths. Or as the great artist Michelangelo is quoted as saying, the great danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. So he's speaking to all of us, and this is what you talked about in the book, that too many people are satisfied with being unfulfilled or being good at just one thing when the potential is so much more. So
hey, I was a crayon guy.
Like I said, I use that. Broken crayons, still colored.
Exactly, the big, thick crayons. That's who I am. I only have 8, but I use them all up.
Well, thanks again for being on and inspiring us. We really appreciate it. For our inspired listeners out there, you don't always need a plan. Sometimes you just need to breathe, trust, let go, and see what happens. If you want to connect with Coach Chris Carlisle, you can visit him at thecoachcarlisle.com. He's also on Twitter at Coach Carlisle, Instagram, The Coach Carlisle, Facebook, The Coach Carlisle, and LinkedIn at Coach Carlisle. Get this book. Check it out. It's an inspiration. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope to have you back on. If you have another, project that you're doing, or you want to come back on Inspired Living, you're always welcome here. And again, thanks for doing all that you've done. Our special guest today, Coach Chris Carlisle, former head strength and conditioning coach of our Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Go Hawks! And until our next solo adventure together, be kind, caring, and compassionate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Coach.